the other previous competitions. We are very good.
And make sure that everything is set for you. We have 14 teams of Ghana here. All what you need, we will give you. But then what do you do for us? Just to give us the medal. Give us the medals. Will you give us the medals? Yes, give us the medals? Yes, give us the medals? Yes, that's what we ask from you.
Team Ghana very much in the search of medals in 14 out of 26 sporting disciplines, with eyes on leading stars like the world steeplechase record holder Beatrice Kepko, Olympic bronze medalist in weightlifting Mohamed Ihab, and Olympic Taekwondo gold medalist Sheikh Salah Cisse. Analysis to come. Across the ocean, football action abounds. English Premier League veers into match day 2 with a top-of-the-table clash between holders and, in recent times, a side that could cause them some trouble.
Oh, and he can't get to that one. And the club record signing, Tanguy Ndombele, has a dream debut goal to level it up. Finally a Tottenham breakthrough. Might come to Kane. Harry Kane! That's all he needs. He doesn't miss those. The top scorer in each of the last 5 seasons is off and running for the new season.
Sterling swings one into the back post. It's pulled by Bernardo Silva right across the face of goal. David Silva is there, gets the ball under control and strikes it right-footed into the net. Here, the ball is played through the middle. Space is opened up for Manchester City. Aguero now 1-2 with Mahrez. Aguero drives it in, hits it with pace. It flew past De Gea.
City welcomes Spurs to the Etihad. Frank Lampard's Chelsea face Leicester City at the Stamford Bridge. Arsenal play Burnley. Liverpool face Southampton. And we have a special preview to all games to come. We also have our tabs on the French Ligue 1, which continues this weekend. Also ahead on the show.
Spare man at the far post, and that man is Suarez, and Suarez has scored the first goal of the Clásico. Toni Kroos, goalkeeper's lost it. Benzema, Real Madrid back. Over the challenge, and Lionel Messi against the odds gives Barcelona the lead. To Gareth Bale, brilliant Bale. He needed 1 second to change the course of the game there. And now 11-man Real Madrid are equal against 10 men Barcelona.
And from the most unlikely of sources, Ivan Rakitic rockets Barcelona in.
We welcome the German Bundesliga, the Italian Serie A, and the Spanish La Liga, but place our lenses on the Spanish action to come with perspectives on giants and challenges ahead of the action to come this weekend. Head to our Facebook page, joy/99.7. Our WhatsApp line, 0244340437. Same on Telegram. Or tweet at us at Joy Sports GH and reacting to our questions of the day. We'll be in the United States to bring you updates from the ongoing Cincinnati Masters, and we'll keep tabs on the IAAF Diamond Leagues around the world. Time to talk about what the world is talking about in the world of sports. Hello from me, George Addo Jr., and welcome to Preview Friday. All right, so thank you very much for joining us. Remember our WhatsApp line again, 0244340437, and we need to hear from you. Later on the show, we'll have a short discussion about the men who made the final shortlist for the UEFA Best Player Awards: Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, and Virgil van Dijk. If you have a player you think has been overlooked, like Bernardo Silva or Alisson Becker, just let me know. But of course, this is how we start the show this afternoon.
To move, if you're ready or not, give it all that you got, turn it up now, you got to move, get your chance to fly with your head held high, right about now, you got to move.
Alright, so when you hear this track, or when you hear the sick tune at 7 o'clock, then our new baby First Take is on from the Lagoon Bar at the Labadi Beach Hotel, and it's going very interesting as we get to talk about the issues, trending issues, and then we have a great chat with First Company to join us, of course the First Bank to join us, Data Bank later this evening. We'll be hearing from Benedict Owusu as well. Benedict, how are you doing this afternoon?
George, I'm doing great.
I'm sure you're looking forward to the evening, are you?
Of course. We're looking forward to this evening, the first episode of First Take. So first episode of First Take.
Yeah.
We are rhyming. So it's definitely going to be a ball there. You have to join us. If you can't be at the Lagoon Bar inside
We'll be streaming
Labadi
on
Beach.
Facebook.
Of course, we'll be on Facebook. We'll be live on Joy 99.7 FM, so you can join in. As always, it's interactive, so you can join us on all our social media platforms. Let's hear from you. It's going to be about trending issues.
That's
what
right.
you and I are talking about. So what you are talking about with your friends in your offices, wherever you find yourself, and nowadays we do a lot of arguments, football argument, athletics argument. So just bring it on. It's going to be fun.
And that's why Benedict is here with me. You remember that we have to begin with athletics here, because over 7,000 athletes from all 54 nations here on the continent will gather in Rabat for the 12th edition of the Africa Games from 19 to the 31st of August. Now, that will be a record, with host Morocco back competing at the Games after missing the last 8 editions. So athletes will compete for medals across 26 sporting disciplines. Team Ghana will be looking to put up a performance, though, in 14 disciplines. And remember, our performance at the last All Africa Games, or now we call it the Africa Games, Ghana snapped 2 gold, 5 silver and 4 bronze, making it 11 overall medals there, 17th overall in terms of position. So we have to quickly get into what the prospects for this year are. And Benedict has been keeping close tabs on the team. Ben, thank you very much again for joining me.
Okay, George, thanks for having me.
So yes, I know football, boxing and athletics populated the final list greatly. Should we expect the same return from them?
Well, it has always been an issue when you talk about African Games, our participation at African Games. You talked about the statistics from the last one, which I was there in Congo Brazzaville.
Yes.
2 gold medals for. One was from the Black Queens team, and also we had the other gold medal coming from the tennis.
Was it tennis? Yes.
Yeah, tennis. Yeah. And it was the same thing. We always go there. Preparations are always an issue, just as this one. I remember speaking to the National Sports Authority Director General, that's Professor Peter Chumesi, and he talked about how we've prepared very well. I mean, prepared very well in terms of what? He was talking about, preparations started 4 years ago after our participation at the last one. I'm like, that 4 years, what was being done?
Yes.
Where the players come, where were the players? Were they taken out for international competitions or what? I mean, you cannot start preparations 4 years before the competition, because players would have to go through the qualifiers, and the qualifiers do not start 4 years after you have finished the first one. So if you talk about preparation starting 4 years, then it's a no-go area. Preparations, of course, can start when players start with their qualifiers and eventually qualify for the championship. Yes, they did a bit of preparations in Cape Coast, but I think that wasn't enough. We knew the contingent that we were taking, so we should have started preparations quite earlier. I mean, all the teams that are coming, or all the countries that are coming with a huge number of participants, started preparations way before us. Where did the black satellites come? They come in Pram before they moved to Accra at M Plaza. How many matches did they play? You understand? The Apricon was made to cut his team to 18. That means that he's not going to get the full set of players that he's taking to the tournament. So now you have to be wise if you're a coach. If you're picking 3 goalkeepers, you're picking players that can play in 3 positions. You understand? So if you're picking a right back, you make sure that the right back can also play at centre back. You make sure that the left back can also play at centre back. You make sure that your defensive midfielder can play as an offensive midfielder as well. The wing player can play as a striker. So that's what happens when you do things like that. Yes, I've seen the list. 91 athletes, we are taking their 14 disciplines. One thing that I'm very thrilled and happy about is that after the last tournament, there was something that we clamored, that we should look at the competitions that we are so sure
that we can get something
It's not just about sending so many athletes there, but it's about the competitions that will be so sure.
So what do you think? Well, boxing usually was a great one.
Of course, boxing, last 4 years, boxing gave us our very first medal. That was the bronze. We had not won any medals, so it was boxing that first gave us our medal. Always, you are certain that boxing will give us something. Football, if things should go well, we also get something from football.
Athletics, 4x100.
Athletics, our girls are there. Flings, Jima, and all the other guys are there. So of course, you can also bang your hopes on them to get you at least a medal or 2 there. So I think that yes, we'll get medals, but we shouldn't think. We should just measure our expectations. That's how we should. We should measure our expectations and pray, as we always do. Pray that
we can do better at least than what we did. We had 11 medals last year. So then
last 4 years, we took quite a number of athletes there. I mean, this time we are going with 91. So if that's anything to go by on an average, then you shouldn't even expect more than 5.
More than 5.
You understand?
Looking
at the number of athletes we took to the last one and the number of medals that we won. If you are taking 91, then we shouldn't even look at getting more than 5 medals. But I believe that they did due diligence. The players,
selecting them.
The athletes, as Professor Chumesi mentioned the last time he met them in Cape Coast, that they believe that these are a crop of athletes that can get us something. And I want to believe that they prepared at least the 3 weeks that they had in Cape Coast. They did enough preparations to get us some medals.
Just a final one before you go. So we're expecting to see the likes of Egypt, Nigeria, South Africa, Algeria to lead the way again. Clearly,
of course. Egypt will always will be there. The last one, they got as many as 140 something medals. You understand? And this time it's in North Africa.
Rabat.
They come
Morocco,
down, they win the medals, and
and Morocco will be a threat.
It's in their territory. So of course, they win a lot of medals. But what we have to do is we have to go out there and participate very well, because we are hosting the next one.
Yes, that's more important. Benedict, thank you very much for joining me, and we're looking forward to all that will happen in Rabat. We'll be coming your way with updates. Benedict will be joining us later tonight when we'll get to bring you first steak. He'll be having his steak, but we'll have to quickly move on to things here on Joy 99.7 FM. Let's keep hearing from you as well on our WhatsApp line 0244340437.
Live on radio, live online. This is The Locker Room with George Addo Jr.
So let's talk the German Bundesliga, which returns this weekend, and Bayern Munich will be looking to make it 8 titles in a row when they kick off the new season against Hertha Berlin tonight. But Borussia Dortmund and RB Leipzig are expected to be on their tails throughout the campaign. So with the new season just around the corner then, we'll have to get some perspective on what's to come in terms of the action. Joining me for some analysis now on The Locker Room, Chris Harrington, who follows the action in Germany keenly and works with DW Sports. Great thank you to you, Chris. And let's begin with the title contenders, Bayern Munich, of course. But last season, most Dortmund fans were made to understand that their team was in transition. Will this be the season to reap the fruits of their patience?
Thank you, brother. I'm glad to be with you on the radio now. Last season was a magical one for Dortmund. No one can deny that. Lucien Favre taking over, reuniting with the captain Marco Reus. All of the new pieces: Axel Witsel, Thomas Delaney, Paco Alcácer, plus the breakout year with Jadon Sancho, my favorite Dortmund player, by the way. With the addition of Nico Schultz, Mats Hummels, a seemingly improved Julian Weigl from what I can see so far, added offensive weapons in Torgan Hazard and Julian Brandt, Dortmund on paper are even more capable to win the Bundesliga than they were last season. Dortmund getting complacent, that's what scares me. Last season, there was a stretch of the season they were dominant. They were first from match day 6 to match day 24, and ultimately it came down to a 2-point difference in the end. Bayern last season won it when it counted most, down the stretch. All right, I think the head-to-head will be a split like last season. They both won on their own turf. But Bayern basically willed the title out of Dortmund's hands somehow. And that makes me think it could potentially repeat in that way. But seeing the Super Cup recently played out, Dortmund, they look good. Unfortunately, Omer Toprak is gone. He looked really good. He was the most solid on defense for me, but Mats Hummels didn't play. This season, hopefully they learn, from the mistakes they made last season, and they'll even be able to watch their own documentary on Amazon Prime, I guess, this season, because it's debuting, as I noticed. But on the other hand, Bayern might not have a bad defensive season, like they did last season. They conceded 30 goals last season. That's a very un-Bayern number. Of course they have to put in their new pieces, in terms of the wings, filling in the boots of Ribéry and Arjen Robben, but the two only combined for 10 Bundesliga goals last season, okay? So, I think it'll be tough. Dortmund will definitely have to learn from their mistakes, but, my money is still on Bayern to repeat, in all honesty. I know I'm going against the grain. Everyone thinks it's Dortmund's year, but I still think Bayern will manage to find a way like they did last season.
So then, which teams do you see competing for the Champions League places? Leipzig, after 3 seasons, have been giving a very good account of themselves. Can they produce the same? And will we see Bayern Leverkusen grab a spot too?
Yeah, Leipzig. Now they have their mastermind, Julian Nagelsmann, running things. They're in a very good position to return to the Champions League. We can't forget they have the best defense in the Bundesliga. They still have, they kept on to Upamecano. Winger Ademola Lookman signed a deal to stay. They added Nkunku from PSG. and also an 18-year-old from Chelsea in Mpadu. I think they look really good. Of course, Yusuf Poulsen up front, Timo Werner as well. Who knows? Nagelsmann might be able to convince Timo Werner to actually invest in Leipzig. And the reality of it is Dortmund, Leipzig, and Bayern are simply head and shoulders above the other teams. I don't know if the other teams will be able to manage that gap because there was quite a drop-off last season, and I don't think it'll be much different. Now, you also mentioned Leverkusen. Now, Leverkusen, they barely qualified for the Champions League last season. 3 points. They finished 3 points over Gladbach. And only 5 points separated 4th to 8th, which is outside of European qualification. I am expecting a better season from Leon Bailey. He didn't build off his first season well. Moussa Diaby from PSG should fit the Peter Bosz style of attack very well. Miri from Hoffenheim, should add to their firepower. He's doing very well, for the younger German national team. But they are missing a man that had 15 assists in Julian Brandt. That'll hurt them, I think. Kai Havertz, a lot of those assists, you got to spread out those assists to who had goal production on that team. And Leverkusen, they had the least amount of draws last season. They only win or lose. For Leverkusen to get there, again, it'll be tough because, as I mentioned, it was that very tight gap. Gladbach and Wolfsburg, you have to give them a fighting chance. I mean, having new coaches, both of those sides could be a handicap, but I like the Wolves' chances because I like what the Wolves have done in their new coach.
Finally, Chris, 7 Bundesliga clubs are beginning the 2019-2020 season with a new head coach, which is the most since 2009-2010 campaign. Hertha Berlin, Schalke 04, Hoffenheim, Borussia Mönchengladbach, Wolfsburg are all in this bracket. How will their different approaches affect the league?
Yeah, we saw 7 coaches get fired last season. So that 7 number, naturally fits. It kind of makes sense. Hertha, I'll start with them. Paul Dardai had to go. Ante Kovic is a homegrown product. He was the coach of Hertha Berlin's reserve team, which means he went from a fourth division team to a top flight team. Okay, but he is Hertha Berlin DNA through and through. Anything is possible, but I think they'll end up in a similar spot to last season, right in the middle of things, safe from danger, but far from Europe as well. Even in adding the attack of Luca Bacchio, I think Hertha Berlin, I think they'll need some time because they do have that money, the investment. So hopefully they'll make more, they'll make better investments moving forward and improve their situation. Now, Schalke's David Wagner has the most pressure, based on Schalke's results. They went from 14th last season. I like David Wagner, though. He came up under Jurgen Klopp, and we can't forget this magic he had with Huddersfield Town. We saw them get promoted to the Premier League. Wagner is someone who can build a team with his personality, improve players individually. He took, there's a story that he took his players on a bonding tour where they had to learn how to sharpen up their survival skills. They only had basic equipment for a few days, and that really added to the team's unity, and that's what Schalke are in desperate need of to resurrect, their reputation and their standing. You also mentioned Hoffenheim. Now, Hoffenheim, basically they're dealing with their assistant in Alfred Schroeder. He was the assistant under Nagelsmann for a few years. It'll be interesting to see how Hoffenheim does because, they have more than a handful of new players, and they're off to a bad start, and that's a problem. Now, the last two I'll touch on, obviously Gladbach and Wolfsburg. Now, Gladbach and Wolfsburg, interesting situation. They finished 5th and 6th in the table last season, respectively. Both sides have Austrian coaches. Now, the Austrian coaching tree has produced successful fruit in the Bundesliga, in the past. And, both sides obviously will be looking to qualify for the Champions League. I think Wolfsburg has a better chance than Gladbach. Now, in Gladbach's case, they have Marco Rose. He's successful in the Austrian Bundesliga. He won it twice plus a double. So I think I give the Wolves a slight advantage, because they've been with the exception of that German Cup game, they were playing very well. they're playing very well thus far. If the new coach's mindset will get them over that hump and put the pressure on Leverkusen and change the order, of things, because it's been, a while since teams have, been consistently going to the Champions League, with the exception of, Bayern and obviously Dortmund.
Thank you very much, Chris Harrington.
And we look forward to the games to come then. Yeah, Borussia Dortmund up against Augsburg. That's one that you want to keep your tabs on. And of course, tonight we've got Bayern Munich up against Hertha Berlin. That's the first game. It doesn't get bigger than that. Let's see where it turns to. But now we have to talk about the English Premier League match day 2. Just on the horizon. I know one or two of you will be looking forward to what Chelsea can do against Leicester City. But that Spurs game versus Manchester City is another one that everyone will be looking forward to then. So let's go over to the Joy Sports BBC two-way series. I had a great chat with the BBC's Steve Crossman. Enjoy this.
Thanks, Steve, for your time this weekend. And Premier League Match Day 2 is on the horizon. Talk on that to come shortly. But let's begin with the UEFA Super Cup action we saw in midweek. How impressive were Chelsea despite the loss?
Yeah, I think they were good. Actually, I was at Old Trafford for the opening Premier League game when, of course, they kind of got battered 4-0 by Manchester United, but they played pretty well for large parts. And, if it wasn't for the post and the crossbar, they could easily have won the game, which seems crazy when you lose 4-0. And actually, if it wasn't for the post and the crossbar, they might have beaten Liverpool without the need for penalties, albeit I think the decision to give Chelsea a penalty for the foul on Tammy Abraham was very, very generous indeed. Yeah, I think they were good. I mean, look, they're going to be exciting. The Chelsea fans never had a connection with Maurizio Sarri. They have an instant connection, of course they do, with Frank Lampard. And again, having been at Old Trafford, the fans, the way they chanted Lampard's name all throughout the game, and they had Frank Lampard banners, they've got something to grab onto there, something which links them to the pitch. Fans should always be able to see themselves in some context on the pitch, and having a manager who's a club legend really, really helps, particularly when he's bringing through a lot of young players. So I think there's a lot to be excited about for Chelsea fans. They might not have an amazing season. They're certainly not going to challenge for the Premier League title. But they're just going to be good fun. I think sometimes we forget that. Sometimes people just bang on about trophies too much and forget that, actually having your team be good to watch is a big deal. So if I was a Chelsea fan, I think I'd be quite excited based on what we've seen so far.
Steve, are concerns of Liverpool fans down here about the thin squad legitimate following their conservative approach in the transfer window and in comparison to Premier League holders Manchester City? So a big football weekend is approaching and all eyes will be on the Spurs-Manchester City clash at the Etihad.
Yeah, I think it is a legitimate concern. If they get an injury to one of the front three, Salah, Firmino, Mane, then Divock Origi will be the man to come in. And look, Origi's a decent player, absolutely no doubt. And of course, he had two remarkably important moments in the Champions League. Two fantastic finishes. The Barcelona goal, which sent Liverpool through to the final of the Champions League, and the goal in the final of the Champions League. He also scored some important goals at the back end of the season for Liverpool, which, could have ended up winning them the title if it wasn't for just how frighteningly good Manchester City are. But look, he's not as good as Gabriel Jesus. Divock Origi is Liverpool's plan B up front. Gabriel Jesus is Manchester City's, and Jesus is a better player, and that's the simplest way to put it. I even think, we were just talking about Chelsea. Olivier Giroud at the minute is plan B for Chelsea. He's a better plan B as well, I think, than Divock Origi, and that's nothing against Origi. There is a part of me that wonders, did Liverpool capitalise on being European champions? You go back quite a few years now when Chelsea won the Champions League with a pretty average team is harsh, but not an amazing team. And they signed Hazard off the back of winning the Champions League. If they hadn't won the Champions League, I don't think he would have gone to Stamford Bridge. So, yeah, I think there is a legitimate concern there, and maybe Liverpool haven't made the most out of being European champions. But, time will tell, and if those three players stay fit, then they'll be fine.
So a big football weekend is approaching and all eyes will be on the Spurs-Manchester City clash at the Etihad. Although this early in the season, how important is a win to both in keeping up with Liverpool, who have a relatively easier task at Southampton?
This season is different to other seasons in that if you'd have asked me that question this time last year, if City were playing Tottenham at this stage of the season, I would have said, yes, it's a big game, but ultimately the result of just one match like this will not dictate where Manchester City are come May, because it's a long season, etc., etc. But if Liverpool can finish second by losing one match, that tells you that now in the Premier League, you know, you can't win the Premier League title in August, but you can lose it. You know, it's that hard. It's that relentless at the top of the league. So games like this can have a seismic impact on the Premier League title. And it's massive, you know. But the thing that's frightening about Manchester City, I went to see Bernardo Silva yesterday to do an interview for the BBC. And he, of course, is an absolutely majestic player. He was on the bench last week, which is terrifying. So yeah, look, it's a massive game, and it's a big game for Spurs as well. You know, they've recruited really well. I don't think they'll challenge for the Premier League title, but it's a mark of, you know, the respect that we should have for Tottenham that they're not that far away. So it's a huge game at the Etihad, no doubt.
Well, Manchester United play on Monday against Wolves. How big a test will this be for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side, despite winning 4-0 against Chelsea last weekend?
Yeah, big test, because last season, you know, Man United were completely dominated by Wolves, weren't they? In more competitions than just the Premier League. They were beaten by them in the FA Cup as well. I think that's an interesting test, because Wolves are basically the same as last season. You know, pretty much all of their business has been confirming loans of really good players into permanent signings. So Wolves haven't necessarily moved on, but that's not a bad thing, because they made such an incredible amount of progress in the space of a short space of time. So I think what we will get here is a real understanding of how good potentially the inverted commas new Manchester United are, because they're coming up against the same outfit that they were dominated by in League and Cup last season. So it's going to be fascinating to see, particularly because, you know, Paul Pogba's performance was really interesting, I thought, against Chelsea. You know, I could hear him getting, not booed from the stands in the first half, but every time he got the ball, there was like this whisper of discontent around the whole stadium. And then in the second half, he was brilliant and he created 2 goals. And all of a sudden, you know, he ripped his shirt off at the end and gave it to a fan. So, I mean, goodness knows what is happening with Paul Pogba. I can't see him leaving now before the transfer window shuts in the major European leagues. But yeah, I think we'll learn a lot in that game.
Steve, which games on match day 2 will be worth watching? I'm very sure Arsenal-Burnley will surely be top of your list.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Southampton against Liverpool, which is always a good game, particularly because, you know, sadly for Southampton fans, they've sort of become a bit of a feeder club for Liverpool in recent years. Actually, a couple of the games that I'm really looking forward to as well. We've talked about Chelsea-Leicester already, but Sheffield United-Crystal Palace isn't normally a game where you'd be like, oh, this could be fantastic. But Sheffield United are a great club, and to have them back in the Premier League is brilliant. You know, that part of England people, you know, might not realise, but it's a proper hotbed of football around that part of the county of Yorkshire, which is my county, so I'm qualified to say. And you know, it's a nice stadium, Bramall Lane. You know, they have great football chants there, a great atmosphere there, and it's their first home game back in the Premier League. You know, they play this totally different style to what we've really ever seen before in England. They're a fascinating club to watch. And, you know, I thought they showed at Bournemouth that they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Actually, I think all 3 promoted clubs are going to properly go for it this season, which is going to make for a really interesting campaign across the board, I think.
Well, so let's end with the UEFA shortlist for the men's best player, and that was whittled down to Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, and Virgil van Dijk. Were there any notable absentees?
I get it. You know, Ronaldo and Messi both had very, very good seasons. I'm personally of the opinion that, you know, really there should be... Sadio Mane should be in it. Of course he should. I mean, I just can't find any way around that. I think it's great that Virgil van Dijk is there because, you know, shout out for the defenders. We always just look at the bright, exciting, attacking players. But Virgil van Dijk is the best defender in the world at the moment, and he totally deserves to be on the list. But yeah, I think it's weird that only one player on the list played in the Champions League final. I think there should be more than that. So yeah, I would agree. I think it's quite contentious. Oh, Bernardo Silva as well. I mean, I know I've just talked about players who were in the Champions League final. When you look at the season that Manchester City had, particularly in England, there should be a City player in there as well. I know Barcelona had a great season and dominated domestically, and I know Juventus did, but cards on the table, it's harder to dominate the Premier League than it is to dominate La Liga and it is to dominate Serie A. So there should have been a City player in there. Raheem Sterling would have had a really good case as well. There'll be more names that I've forgotten probably, but yeah, I would say somebody like Sterling or Bernardo Silva or Sadio Mane, definitely unlucky to miss out.
Live on radio, live online, this is The Locker Room with George Addo Jr.
So La Liga starts in earnest this weekend, and Barcelona will try to carry the mission of defending and winning the third title in a row, sharpen the squad for the 2019-2020 season. But will Real Madrid's new look team be a threat, or Atletico Madrid will find their mojo again in snatching this away from the two? Let's dive into some analysis right now, and Enoch Fifi Forson and Rick Wampofo join me in studio. How are you doing, guys?
We're very well, George.
Yeah, sounds like it. It's an interesting combination, but I think we're fine. Okay, so guys, let's then examine how both Real Madrid and Barcelona may be planning to absorb Neymar should they land the Brazil international. Let me start with you, Efsin. How would it look on the side of Barcelona if Neymar joins?
Well, I think Barcelona are going in for Neymar because they know they've seen what he's done before when he was at the club. 3 seasons, his combination with Suarez and Messi was excellent. They scored over 300 goals and they have a solid partnership on and off the field. I think this is the main reason they are going for Neymar. But I think Neymar is not needed at the moment because you spent over 195 million euros to boost the squad with the coming in of Frenkie de Jong and Antoine Griezmann. Antoine Griezmann gives you an option up front, meaning you had a problem up front and you brought in Griezmann, and Griezmann is one player who can give you goals. So I think Neymar right now is not necessary. It's not necessary also because his work rate is very poor, and you don't need a player like Neymar to also be in the same lineup as Messi, because right now we all know Messi is 30 plus and his work rate is very poor off the ball. He doesn't track back, he doesn't defend so well. Just like Neymar also doesn't track back and defend very well. And if these two players are in the team, it's going to affect Barcelona. So Barcelona do not really need Neymar. They should stick with what they have: Griezmann, Suarez, Dembele and Messi up front.
Well, before I even bring Rico into the discussion, let me stick with you, Efsin, on that. And I'm sure Barcelona are also thinking about the possibility of seeing Neymar play for the enemy against them.
Yeah, that would be very harsh on Barcelona, and Barcelona fans would not want that. But you want to compare it to Figo in the early 2000s when he left Barcelona directly to Real Madrid. It's not the same. It's not the same as Neymar because he went to PSG and there's a possibility of him moving to Real Madrid, and so there's a difference. It depends on the player where he wants to play. According to reports, he wants to join Barcelona because he wants to re-establish the relationship with Suarez and Messi. But I think the club do not need him. Maybe Neymar said he was following his dream, or it's
all over. The prodigal son wants to come back. Why are you reminding him of all of this? I know there's some bitterness inside the Barcelona fans, and it's going to take some time to go away. But you have to choose between, the frying pan and the fire itself. He goes to Madrid, plays against you, scores goals against Barcelona, or you keep him and manage him.
I don't want to see him at Real Madrid, but I don't think Barcelona should sign Neymar.
Sign him. Yeah. Neymar. Rico, let me bring you in this discussion as well. And you first give me an idea of what Real Madrid can do with him. It looks like there's a bit of room for him there.
Well, I do think that for Real Madrid and this whole Neymar issue, probably going to Barcelona is a safer option because you look at the risk there, and I think that there's more aversion because he's worked with these guys before and he does know the system, he knows the city, he knows the people. So assimilating into the squad wouldn't be that hard for him. But on the other hand, Real Madrid aren't as good as they do look. There's so many plots in there, so many issues amongst the team. We know the Gareth Bale issue, and as to whether Zidane supersedes Perez or is the other way around. So I think that there's a whole political issue there. Recently we've seen that Vinicius and Jovic may be demoted or sent out on loan by Zinedine Zidane. So I don't think that Real Madrid are in a position to sign Neymar because they do not have a system. We saw Zidane alternating formations every game throughout preseason. I think that the season is starting too early for them. Zidane doesn't know his best 11 and his squad is not ready. So it's not an environment that Neymar would enjoy going to. And I think that the situation right now is that he wants to leave PSG and there are only two teams that can afford him at the moment, and that's Barcelona and Real Madrid. And if Barcelona cannot make it, then he has to play second fiddle and join Real Madrid.
So let me stick with you then. Let's talk about Real Madrid. And it's a season that starts, yes, they'll be hoping to start well and ultimately try and see if they can wrestle the challenge. But do their problems look too difficult and maybe are likely to fall off the pecking order?
I think that their problems haven't been solved. And from last season, clearly it was something to do with their defense and shape whenever they're defending. And I don't think that they've improved that throughout the preseason. You look at the nature of the teams that they played and conceding 3 goals against the likes of Galatasaray and all that, and they failed to keep a clean sheet even throughout preseason. So I don't think that defensively they've covered that angle. But I've always said that Zinedine Zidane was quote-unquote successful at Real Madrid because of the amount of goals that he got up front, and he always had Cristiano Ronaldo or players around him getting 40-50 goals. Real Madrid were always poor defensively. Ramos was always exposed, and the only situation right now is that they're not getting as much goals, and that's where the trouble comes in. They've brought in Hazard, but Hazard just came off his first ever 20-goal season, and
maybe that's why they say they need Neymar score more goals.
Yeah, I think so. But Zidane hasn't hidden his, unlike or not so. He doesn't really prefer Neymar, and he's made that public as to the two of the players. He actually loves Hazard and would love to work with him. But of course, Real Madrid, as I said, are in a very, very
difficult
tight
time.
corner.
So you don't see them holding. I'll come to your top 4 predictions and all of that. But for this one, you don't see them holding down the second place, even if Barcelona are going to win this third title.
Nah, I think Real Madrid will struggle to make the top 4. Same way I said United would in the Premier League. I think that this is where the surprise would come from, and I think they would concede the same number of goals that are somewhere around the region. They would concede a lot in the season, and the problem is I do not think that they can score as much. Benzema is not reliable. Hazard won't give you as much goals. He's not that consistent in terms of that. Gareth Bale, who I think could have scored those goals, wouldn't be given as much game time, and Zidane, I don't think coming back was the good choice, and so it's a ticking time bomb that I'm patiently waiting to explode.
All right, then let's talk about the challengers. Who are the challengers then? Because Barcelona seem to be having this, and they've really bolstered the squad. I was just saying in the intro there. So, actually, let's talk about Atletico Madrid. Now, could this be their season?
Atletico, I think they are best to finish second because I think you look at the signings they've made. They brought in the likes of Joao Felix, and the guy has shown great. He's been very great during the preseason, and you look at the likes of Marcos Llorente, Hector Herrera. All these guys have come into the team and they've shown confidence during the preseason, and I think Atletico Madrid are a better place to finish second ahead of Real Madrid, finishing behind Barcelona, of course, because I believe Barcelona will retain the title, looking at the experience of Ernesto Valverde and also having Lionel Messi bargaining the goals for Barcelona. So I think Atletico Madrid are in a better place ahead of Real Madrid.
Okay, guys, let's then quickly do this. Let's get your top 4 predictions. I think you've probably gone half of it already. I have a good idea what you guys think will be happening at the top. So, Efsin, your top 4 predictions.
My top 4 will be Barcelona to finish first, Atletico Madrid second, Real Madrid, I believe, will finish third, and Valencia to finish fourth.
Okay, well, I like the way the stress on Valencia. That's it. Oreko Ampofo, what are you thinking now?
See, I'm not going to play devil's advocate, but I think that Lopetegui would do better than Zidane domestically this season. But I think that, top 2 should be Barcelona and Atletico. I think that they're currently the best 2 teams in Spain right now. They've both reinforced well, and they should really fight it out there. We saw the gap between Atletico and Real Madrid in that preseason game where they won by 7-3. So I think that would show, and the top 2 probably would lead the rest of the pack by 12-13 points. And in third, I think Sevilla would come up there. Last year, Getafe surprised us, but I do leave that 4th spot for a surprise pack, probably a Real Betis, or I don't think Valencia would be anywhere around the top 6. Real Madrid may struggle to make the top 4, probably 5th, 6th. So maybe they have to fight for that 4th spot with Real Betis, maybe a Getafe, or if Villarreal could step up, but Valencia and Real Madrid would be out of the top 4. I'm very confident.
Well, thank you very much, Oriku Ampofo, and thank you very much, Forsen, for joining us on the show. And it's really good to find out what will be happening in the Spanish Liga. Moses Yeboah has got a wrap of what's to come on match day 1 in La Liga.
Barcelona will be looking to make a winning start to their 2019-2020 La Liga campaign when the Spanish champions travel to San Mamés to face Athletic Bilbao on Friday night. The Catalan Giants once again proved to be the best team that Spain have to offer last season, while Bilbao ended the campaign in 8th position, 8 points off 4th placed Valencia. The new season won't have come around quick enough for Real Madrid, who will be desperate to hit back after a miserable 2018-2019 campaign. They take on Celta Vigo away, while Atletico Madrid get their La Liga season underway on Sunday when they host Getafe at Wanda Metropolitano. The departures of Antoine Griezmann and Rodri will be tough, but exciting new arrivals such as Joao Felix will certainly benefit Atleti. Record champions Bayern Munich kick off the new campaign and their bid to make it 8 league titles in a row when they host new look Hertha Berlin in the new season opener on Friday. Bayern had 2 points to spare over Borussia Dortmund in the title race last season, and Niko Kovac's side will look to lay down an early marker. Borussia Dortmund tasted success in last week's DFB Pokal Cup against Bayern and will be raring to get off to a winning start in their campaign when they welcome Augsburg into their midst this weekend. Having started the defense of their Ligue 1 crown with a 3-0 win over Nîmes at home, Paris Saint-Germain now make the tricky journey away to Rennes on Sunday evening in game week 2. And in England, Manchester City and Tottenham Hotspur square off at the Etihad Stadium on Saturday evening, having both registered victories in their opening fixtures. Raheem Sterling netted a hat-trick as City thrashed West Ham United by a 5-0 scoreline, while Spurs came from behind to register a 3-1 win over Aston Villa. Liverpool look to continue their winning start when they visit Southampton, and on Sunday, Chelsea, who have suffered 2 defeats in 2 games since the start of the season, will hope to finally taste victory in their tricky home clash with Leicester City.
To move if you're ready on.
All right. I hope you'll be moving this evening. We'll see you there at the Lagoon Bar Labadi Beach Hotel. We're starting at 7 o'clock. First take, but we've got a little bit of discussion to do now. We have to be quick with in the next 4 minutes. Oriku Ampofo is still with me in studio. Oriku, how you doing?
Hi, George. I'm good.
So let's talk about the breaking news right now and see what it means. Eden Hazard injured for 3 to 4 weeks. It's a hamstring, is it?
Yeah, it's been phrased as a thigh problem as things stand. Further tests are supposed to be run, but it
so
does look
more
like,
weeks.
Yeah, normally hamstring injuries do tend to be 3 to 4 weeks, but the thing about a hamstring is that you never know when it's back and when you're fully back. So you could aggravate it when you come back. So fitness, the doctors and the meds usually tend to slowly ease players back from hamstring injury. So it could be a slightly long spell for Hazard, probably a month or 2 before he comes into action.
There'll be more analysis on this, and it will be interesting to hear from Data Bank, all the guys in there who are listening to us right now. What you have to say about that Eden Hazard injury? 2 things. Now, it means that he's not going to make his debut as expected in La Liga. They're up against Celta Vigo. That's it. But what does it do to Real Madrid and their fight to want to get players like Neymar in? Now, do they have to think about seeing if they can rush Paul Pogba back into the club, or they can stay calm and say they can do without Eden Hazard for like 4 weeks in the La Liga?
I think it was just the Hazard injury, then probably eyebrows would have probably still stayed down. But this is a situation where we have Rodrigo out injured, Militao is also out injured, and we've had the case of Jovic, who's returned from his injury throughout preseason, but Zidane still thinks that he's not fit to start for the club yet. So there's a big situation here, and with Hazard out injured, we could possibly see the same starting 11 that Real Madrid did end the season with last season. So it really does downplay on the efforts that Perez has put out there this summer transfer window. And I think that with all these injuries, Real Madrid may as well just put one last dive into the transfer window with Neymar possibly moving out of France this transfer window. This could be their cue. I remember that they're in the battle with Barcelona. So with Neymar out and with Hazard out, a possible bad result against Celta could really spark a really big domino move.
Now Bill Eshon is a Real Madrid fan. Thank you for joining me in studio as well. Bill, so then you need Bale all of a sudden right now, don't you?
Yeah, it seems it's now very likely that Bale would have a shot because Zidane banked his trust on Eden Hazard as his talisman. He talked about him a lot of the time in press conferences, praising him and all that. Now he's injured for 3 to 4 weeks, and without him, he has to find replacements. Rodrigo is out, Vinicius is around, but he has to figure out whether to put him on the left or on the right. Whatever the case, Bale has to come in and help the team now because he doesn't have as many wingers around. Asensio is also out. So
that's where it gets tricky. Now you want to rely on someone you totally rejected?
Yeah, now
and you're hoping that he stays professional.
Yeah, now he's backed into a very big corner. He shouldn't have made that statement earlier in the summer about Bale wanting to leave, about it being the best for both the club, him, and then the player himself. He shouldn't have made that statement. Now it's going to come back to bite him in a very, very big way.
And Oreko, just in 20 seconds, if things don't go well, he'll be likely, like what, Zidane will be moving out of the club before Bale does.
I didn't make that prediction though, but I still think that the reason why Bale is at the club is that he thinks he may outlive Zinedine Zidane for a second time. So we're yet to see. But of course, we know Perez, he snaps his fingers pretty quickly, and he may probably do so before we could even, as faster than we could even imagine. So it's a big season. Zidane needs to start, or you do not want to get into the bad pages, especially in the newspapers, and that could bring some pressure upon him. So all the best to Madrid and Zidane. Hopefully he's able to pull some magic without Hazard.
Thank you very much, Oreko and Prophet. Thank you very much, Bill. It was really short. Of course, you have your first take later at the Lagoon Bar at Labadi Beach Hotel, and we'll be in there with Databank. It's good to have all of you on board, and it's great to have the show running. On Sunday, we're coming away with live commentary, English Premier League game. That's Chelsea versus Leicester City. Very, very important. Chelsea versus Leicester City at the Stamford Bridge. We want to see what Frank Lampard will do in that. That's it for our show. Till we meet next week, well, you have to be good, and see you later this evening.